Shalom. This is a follow-up video message with the one that I put out yesterday. It has to do with keeping the law and keeping Torah. And I want to go ahead and clarify something that maybe I wasn't entirely clear on in the last video. At the very end, when I was talking about keeping the law, I wasn't saying that people as of this point have already received the mark of the beast, the mark of the Antichrist. That hasn't happened yet. But when people drift away from following the commandments of Yahweh, the God of Israel, they are going to be keeping the law is showing true genuineness of faith. Going through trials show the genuineness of faith. And like I said in the message, if we are keeping the law, that means we are producing good fruit because we are in obedience, not because of our salvation, but because it's going to be something that comes natural to us. And this may be a little lengthier than the one I did yesterday because I wanted to follow up with some more passages out of New Testament and some of the passages out of the Tanakh, or people call the Old Testament. So I just want people to understand that doing this feeling like it's compulsory, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. People will sit and say, well, there's too much to deal with. There's too much. Everybody has to start somewhere. It's the simple fact that because somebody is finally starting to understand, now they're starting to put the effort in. It goes back to the parable of the farmer with the hired servants to go and work the field. I'm just speaking casually right now. I'm not actually reading it, but he promised a denarius, a day's wage, for the men that were going to go and work in the field all day. Well, that promise was made, and here comes another group. They're not going to work as long, but they're going to be offered the same pay, and it finally works its all the way down to the last one, or last ones, who came virtually at the very end of the day, and they still got paid the same rate. Well, the people that were in there working all day started complaining, thinking that the people that didn't work as much as they did deserved the same rate of pay, when they were told that I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to give to everybody the same how I choose to. So what that's saying is, you can have somebody who has been doing this their whole life, but somebody who, it could be a couple of days before Messiah returns, at least you're putting in the effort to do it. Not everybody is going to be able to keep all of this perfectly. There's only one who did it perfectly, and that was Yeshua, our Messiah. But we still have to try. We still have to, learn from our mistakes and pick ourselves back up. So what I wanted to read these to you is, this is the event in the book of Matthew, chapter 21 and verse 19, where Yeshua came across the fig tree that had no fruit on it, no figs. And I'll go ahead and read it to you. It says, seeing a lone fig tree by the road, he came to it and found nothing on it except leaves only. And he said to it, no longer shall there ever be any fruit from you. And at once the fig tree withered. So what this is talking about here, trees in Scripture are a representation of people. So this analogy that's being used here, the fig tree is representing somebody who has not produced any fruit, who has not been truly converted. You look at it from the aspect of somebody who has only offered lip service, but just like Yeshua said, Why do you why do you call me master when you don't do what I tell you to do? Why do you do that? So moving on to the next verse. Now, going back into Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting in verse 4, going through verse 8. This is the Shema. And I'll get back to the point on this that I want to focus on. It says, "Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. You shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I am commanding to you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and they shall talk with them when you sit down in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign to your hand, and they shall be as frontlets on your forehead. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." So, going into verse 8, it says here, "You shall bind them as a sign on your right hand, and shall be as frontlets on your forehead." So over in Israel, you have a lot of Orthodox Jews who take this very literally, and they bind it onto their right hand and on their forehead. This is talking about your right hand and your forehead is the right hand, your hand being the action you take, and on your forehead, your head, being your thought process, what you're thinking about. It's not talking about a literal physical tying this stuff to your body. Let's see here. Going in Jeremiah 31, verse 33. "But this is a covenant which I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahweh. I will put my law within them and on their heart. I will write it, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people." So, right here, he's saying that, these laws are going to be written on their hearts. Remember, going back into the book of Mark, forgive me, I forget the chapter and verse because I'm kind of shotgunning it right now. But where he got into a dispute with the Pharisees, they were questioning his disciples about the washing of the hands before eating, talking about doing the traditions of the elders. And what he was saying in that is that it's not what goes into a person's mouth that defiles them, it's destroyed in the stomach, but it's what comes out of the person's, what comes out of their heart is what this is also getting into. The genuineness of who you are. It's just like when he said to the Pharisees, you can be clean and beautiful on the outside, but you can be corrupt and wicked and evil within. It's all what comes out of the heart. So the laws and the statutes and the ordinances which were given to Moses, including the 10 Commandments, are to be on our heart. It's supposed to come naturally. So when we're truly converted, we're going to produce good fruit. Okay. Hold on a second. Oh, I don't want to get into that one yet. Let me get back out of this. Okay. So now, I'm going to jump into Galatians chapter 3, verses 23 through 25. And here's the other thing. When people start getting into reading Paul's letters, you've got to be very careful how these things are worded, because if you're not studying these, you're not paying attention, you're going to misunderstand. That's why a lot of people avoid Paul's letters, and I did for a while, because until I had the proper mindset, I was misunderstanding these, and the Paul's letters create some problems and confusion, and they can create strife and division within the body of Messiah. So that's why you've got to be very careful how you read these things. So here in Galatians 3, like I said, starting in verse 23, But our faith came, we are kept in custody under the law, being shut up to the faith which was later to be revealed. Therefore, the law has become our tutor to lead us to Mashiach, to lead us to Christ, so that we may be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor. So, this is not saying, here he is actually saying, excuse me, here he is actually saying that the law is there to help lead us to Mashiach. It is there to show us our faults, where we are falling short, missing the mark, committing sin. Sin, like I've already said, is the transgression of the law. Sin, you are being lawless without the law. So, just like, is it okay to commit adultery, for somebody to commit infidelity from being married? No, it's not. Is it okay to commit incest inside of your family? No, it's an abomination. Is it okay to go and commit bestiality? No. Do you need to go and, deal, like, let's say you're a rancher or something, you have an animal that has a habit of attacking people and you don't deal with it. Should you be held responsible? Yes. So, and people say that the Mosaic laws don't apply. These are in the Mosaic laws. These apply. So there are some laws that the Mosaic laws, the problem is people need to go in and actually read these, because there are 613 of them. Not all 613 apply to a single individual. There are parts of these laws that apply to everybody. Some apply to men, some apply to women, some apply to people in ranching and agriculture, some apply to the sacrificial system. Other laws apply to the care of the tabernacle. Other laws apply to the Levite priesthood and how they're taking care of the inside of the tabernacle. Who's responsible for what the priest is responsible for, and who's doing what. So it runs a wide gamut here of who is responsible for what and what we're all supposed to do concerning the 613 laws. That's where and there are other laws that are only applicable if you actually live in the land of Israel. Those same laws that are applicable in Israel, some of them, are not applicable if you are living outside the land of Israel. That's another batch right there. So that's where people, they think that it's impossible. The laws are not burdensome. They are not. Keeping the commandments is not burdensome. It's not. So moving on. Oh, wait a second. Okay, here it is. Right here, this is also in Galatians chapter 3. This is up in verse 13 and 14. Mashiach redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree, in order that Messiah Yeshua, the blessing of Abraham, might come to the Gentiles, so that we would receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Okay, this is where a lot of people will use this, but verse 13 in particular, saying, it says right here, I'll read it again. Christ, Mashiach, redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us, for it is written, curses everyone who hangs on a tree. So, what Christ actually redeemed us for in relation to the law, the curse of the law itself for the people of Israel was a curse, because they were doing it for their salvation purposes. They weren't following the law for the right reasons. They weren't doing it through faith. That's why virtually all of the original Israelites that left Egypt were left to die in the wilderness, because they kept testing Yahweh, and they didn't have faith. That's where they were lacking, no faith. So we are now redeemed through our Messiah, through his sacrifice, through grace. But we have to have faith and believe in him, And by that, if our faith is truly genuine, then we naturally would want to do what we are commanded to do, follow these laws and these commandments. A child obeys what their parents tell them. Well, our Father in heaven, we should be, as his children, we should be obeying him. So this is not saying that obeying the law is a curse, because you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. It's not a curse at that point. It says, let's see here. Okay, it says here in Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come about, if you do not obey Yahweh your Elohim, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, with which I charge you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. This in Deuteronomy 28, starting in verse 15, going all the way down into verse 20 or 68, is the consequences for disobedience that will come upon people. And if somebody takes the time, and actually, I'm not going to take the time to sit and read through this tonight. If somebody actually sits and goes into Deuteronomy 28, start in verse 15 and go all the way to the end. This is the consequences of what will happen if you are being disobedient. Remember, you have to do this from the heart. You can't just simply say, do the lip service thing. Remember, these people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And a last one here in Deuteronomy 27, verse 26. Cursed is he who does not confirm the words of this law by doing them, and all the people shall say, Amen. So you have to understand that it is, if you are not sitting, once you have been exposed to the truth and the knowledge of the truth, if you continue to sit here and deliberately buck at this, to not sit and obey these laws and keep them, it will be a curse against you. And this is not something I really suggest playing around. The reason a lot of people haven't felt the effects of this is because they have been taught wrong. These pastors and these ministers that stand at these pulpits that go to the seminary school, they know this stuff, but they're going in line that if they start preaching off this stuff, that they fear that they're going to lose their congregations and therefore the income from the offering plates that come in at the end of the day. I remember when I first started digging into this, I had to do it on my own. I didn't have somebody to sit here and show me the ropes. I had to learn this stuff. And I would go and ask questions about it at the assembly that I went to at one point, which I'm now separated from. And it's I was given the whole same runaround. I was about the dietary laws. How we're not supposed to eat things like pork and shellfish and predatory birds, and don't eat, if you're gonna eat fish, it has to have fins and scale. And as far as men keeping trimming their beards, etc. I was told that was all belonged to the Israelites. It doesn't apply to us anymore. And this is the whole thing. People keep saying that this was nailed to the cross. No, it was not. Even Yeshua said himself he did not come to change the law or the prophets. Not the smallest jot or tittle will be taken from the law until all is accomplished, not until heaven and earth pass away. That if you do not keep these and you teach others to do them, you will be considered least in the kingdom of heaven. But if you do them and teach others to do the same, you will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. That is what people need to understand, is they've got to go back and start at the beginning. You've got to go back and start reading through the Torah and the Tanakh. The Tanakh and the Torah are intertwined with each other. It's just simply the Old Testament. The Torah are the first 5 books, and the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And there are other laws and statutes that were added after Torah that you've got to be careful on. But it's stuff that's clear, written in a little bit of a more clear way that kind of expounds on what's already written in Torah. It's just being told in a different fashion. So I just want to say, I hope that somebody actually is listening to this and paying attention, because if you're going to an assembly and you're being told that these laws no longer apply to you, that you're not supposed to be following them, you need to run from that as fast and as far as you can. Just like you have everyone who claims to believe in Mashiach and be a Christian, and they're going to assemblies on Sunday. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to do a follow-up message on this very issue, but it's not a good thing. I'll put it to you that way. The one commandment that everybody runs from for the craziest reasons is keeping the actual Sabbath, which is not Sunday. It is not Sunday. Just like other things, these crazy man-made rules and traditions that are created that are not even biblical, they're pagan, is celebrating definitely Halloween. That's a day of death. I don't know why even assemblies mess around with this. And then you've got, Christmas. That people say it's to celebrate the birth of the Messiah. No, it is not. No one even knows when he was born. And then people say, oh, we're going to do Easter. Okay, about the resurrection. First off, these assemblies and these pastors, they've got the resurrection wrong. He didn't rise on a Sunday. And I'll have to do a separate video about this at a later time, but the Messiah actually rose on the Sabbath. Because people say, he was put in the ground on a Friday, rose again on Sunday. He said that the only sign, an adulterous generation seeks a sign. The only sign that they would be given is the sign of Jonah. Jonah was in the belly of the fish, the sea monster, for 3 days and 3 nights. You have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So let's say Friday, 3 days, 3 nights. You have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days. Friday night, Saturday night. They say he rose on Sunday. That's 3 days and 2 nights. The math doesn't add up. So this is a different video that I'm going to do at a later time to try to clean this mess up that was created, because people have got to stop thinking about this whole Gregorian calendar that we're operating off of, because it is not the correct calendar system. It's not the calendar that was being used 2,000 years ago. It is a creation by Pope Francis Gregory. So I'm not going to, because I'm going to start getting off on a tangent about this, because it's just very frustrating. So I'm going to end this here, and like I said, there's a follow-up video to this one that I'm going to be doing, and it has specifically to do with the Sabbath. So with that, shalom.